August 27th, 2018. This is the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter at 7 o'clock p.m. We will call the meeting to order. Would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our August 13th, 2018 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 5 through 7. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion. Second it.
All in favor of the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next, we will address visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? I don't know if they want to speak, but I know we want to speak to them. Jane, if you could come forward, we would appreciate it.
You want me to sit?
You can sit.
All right.
This might take a while, so.
Uh-oh.
This is your review. This is your review.
It's a raise?
Wait a minute.
Jane, first of all, I have a certificate of appreciation I would like to read. And it says, whereas Jane Timmerman has faithfully served her community and the City of St. Peter Recreation and Leisure Services Department for over 31 years, and whereas Jane worked tirelessly for over 3 decades to develop the department by providing new and creative programming for all ages, and whereas Jane was instrumental in the development of Central Community Center and the current Community Center, and whereas Jane worked tirelessly to assist with recovery efforts following the 1998 tornado and found innovative ways to provide recreational opportunities for community youth the summer after the tornado when the city's facilities and equipment had been destroyed. And whereas her performance of the duties and responsibilities of the Director of Recreation and Leisure Services has been characterized by constructive contributions and dedicated to the city. And whereas throughout her career with the city, Jane has earned the respect and admiration of her fellow employees for her positive attitude and dedication to her work. And whereas Jane is retiring from active employment with the city and will be missed by all. Now therefore, I, Charles Zeman, Mayor of the City of St. Peter, Nicollet County, Minnesota, do hereby present this certificate of appreciation to Jane Timmerman, and do hereby extend to her the council's deep appreciation for her many years of service and best wishes for an enjoyable and relaxing retirement. In witness thereof.
You know, Chuck, I wasn't emotional before this.
Before you get more emotional, we'll do this first. Appreciation. I took it out of the box. You can have the box. Thank you very much for all your service. You will be missed.
Appreciate it. I will miss all of you and all your support through the years. The council has always been amazingly supportive of the Recreation Department and of me. So thank you.
Congratulations, Jane.
What's that?
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was just saying to Chuck and to all of you how much I appreciate all the support that you've given me in the Recreation Department as I began early on thinking I wasn't going to make it in this job for a year, and I'm here 30 years later. So I'm very glad I hung in there with it, and I appreciate all the support that I've received over the years and the positive comments that people have made and the times when you've also kind of urged me to work a little harder or dig a little deeper, because that's always good too, and I learned a lot, and I will miss you.
You will be missed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give her another hand. For 31 years, you should stand up.
It seems after 31 years, we should have taken more time, but I guess we have to move on with our regular business. Jane, I know you're having an appreciation day coming up here
On Wednesday? Yeah.
this Wednesday. All right. And
Okay,
what's,
and you don't have to stick around for the meeting, Jane. I'm not going to make you stay for the
but that will be on your final review, so. Ron is.
Diana and Ron are going to stay on the meeting.
All right.
All right. Thank
And
you.
if somebody in the community were interested in, is this a public reception?
How the policy of the city works is that this is not.
Okay.
This is internal. Certainly, council members are invited, but it's
Okay.
we're going all out on Wednesday for cake and ice cream on Wednesday.
I will be there. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 8 and concludes with the resolution on page 24, and includes the following budgeted purchases. I believe this should be in excess of anyway, $10,000 now, is it not? Isn't that a $10,000 amount?
Yeah, I copied from
Yep.
So that changed. $10,000 are hereby approved. Loggers of St. Peter, 2018 Ram 2500 Outdoorsman 4x4 regular cab truck for $29,625.65. To MTI Distributing, Toro Sand Pro 5040 maintainer with attachments for $25,135.84. The following employee appointment: Scott Simondet for Parks Construction Maintenance Worker at $17.75 an hour. There are some excess items, shirts, 500 T-shirts from the Recreation and Leisure Service Department, which will be donated, plus the licenses, a temporary show license and a temporary soft drink license for Rock Bend Folk Festival at Minnesota Square Park from September 8th through September 9th, 2018, plus the regular schedule of disbursements for August 9th, 2018 through August 22nd, 2018. Are there any questions on the consent agenda or comments? John?
Todd, the 500 T-shirts we're donating are leftovers from our October fun run and such, but it represents something like 10 or 15 years worth of,
Yes,
Of
they're
overrun?
from actually a number of things. So it's October Fun Run. Some of them might say for T-ball T-shirts or ball T-shirts that were left over, and
but
all kinds of different
we've
things.
been collecting these for a number of years and finally grouping them and getting rid of them.
We've offered them for sale at other fun runs and other activities.
So
The
we-
T-shirts so as an example, if Brant Law Office sponsored a T-ball team, we would have called them and said, do you want some of your T-shirts? And if they didn't, they continue in this pile.
So it's not like we ordered 500 extra of something.
It's over the last 31 years, John.
Steve?
And the individual that was hired for the construction maintenance worker?
Yep.
Is he a current city employee?
He is not.
Okay,
He had been a city employee previously.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, sorry.
Page 19, Todd.
Minnesota Department of Transportation, Highway 22 bridge lights. What is,
Let me have Pete talk about that one. It does relate to the Highway 99 bridge next to the chamber. Or is this the 22 one? 22. Okay.
If you guys, Mayor and City Council, if you guys remember, a few years back, we reconstructed the portion of Highway 22 at 169 going to the south. We participated in a cost share with those according to our agreement that we have with MnDOT. The initial cost estimate that came in was about $12,000 for lights and electrical work along the bridge. When they got the bids in, the bridge was the lights were a little higher, so we had to do some additional work there, and this is the final payment to that. I know it's about 2 years after the project's completed, but that's how long we've been going back and forth on discussing the cost, and MnDOT provided all the documentation, so we approved the expenditure.
Steve?
Well, Councilman Johnson brought up the issue with bridge lights. I attended the 99 bridge dedication last week, and I went on the tour of the bridge after it was over with. And the two engineers from the Department of Transportation talked about the lights, that they have not been lit yet because they've had problems. So I asked him, I said, who's in control of the light switch? And Mr. Moulton's name came up. So I'd like to know where that light switch is located, because they couldn't tell me either.
Well, maybe after we make this payment, they'll give us a
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So you don't know where the light switch is?
We're working on it.
Okay, good, all right.
Anything else?
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second it.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Coleman.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have unfinished business, which there is none, so we will move right into new business. And the first up is a request for assistance for Oktoberfest. Todd.
Mayor and members, this is from the St. Peter Ambassadors Organization. They've had Oktoberfest in parking lot number 5 for a number of years now. This request is substantially similar to what you've seen over the last few years. I think the only thing that's important to note is the same thing that we noted last year, which is that they really asked for a couple more days to set up and take down, and so this corresponds with what we provided last year, which does not exactly correspond with their request. They've had plenty of time. I hate to have that parking lot shut down for 2.5 or 3 days in addition to what's going on. There are businesses in that area that certainly utilize that, and so they understood that last year and understand that this year and can make the event move forward. As is your usual, they have to put it back in the right order, provide insurance at $1.5 million, all of the regular stuff, again, substantially similar to what you've seen in previous years. Their letter is included on page 27, and the resolution providing approval, including the use of about 30 picnic tables, some portable lighting, all of that is included in the resolution on page 29.
Questions? The resolution approving city assistance for the St. Peter Ambassadors Oktoberfest appears on pages 29 and 30. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved?
Second.
Now, any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Coleman.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. Resolution is approved. Next, we have a fire station Phase 2 design approval. And Todd again.
Mayor and members, you currently have, or already have in place, a contract with 5 Bugles to do design work and site work for you. What I'm looking for here is based on your previous discussion, and so part of it is a part of that regular contract that you have in place, so it's not really new or additional. Some of the work contemplated here is additional, and that relates to what I discuss in the second paragraph under the background, where the council asks for some more data related to what would you see customarily, or what's the normal size for a fire department space that is for this purpose, or a space that is for that purpose. And so that is outside of the contract that you had with them previously. The site work is not, but that was outside of the work that you had for them previously. And so that's included in this. So a portion of this $6,750 relates to the current contract that you have in place, and a portion of it relates to some of the extra normalization data that they're going to get for you and present to the council, hopefully at your next goal-setting session. Information's included in your packet, and there's a resolution which is on page 34.
Questions?
It's really 6,400, not 6,700.
Well, it's not to exceed $6,750 because there's about $350, John, that could be additional for extra meetings and things like that.
I made the resolution as 6,400, not to exceed.
Oh, did I miss that one?
Yeah, on page 34.
Oh, I apologize. It should be 6750, John. Great catch on page 34. Not to exceed 6750. Yep, 6750. Thank you.
Any other questions? Todd, what happens after this? What's our next Phase 3, I guess it would be?
Well, part of the work that the council discussed is, and this really drives us towards action related to acquisition of site. After that, once a site is put in place, then there'll be additional further design work getting through what I would call your 50% schematic. So that gives you more of a picture of what the building's going to look like, That gives them better information, more design to be able to calculate out what the costs are, how much cement, how many lineal feet of copper wire, all of those kind of things that go into building a building. But really, the next phase for the council will be receiving this information. Some of this drives towards some site analysis, and then it would be acquisition, and then through that 50% of schematic phase.
Okay. Anyone else? The resolution with the one change on point, or number 2, changing it from 6,400 to 60, not to exceed 6,750, appears on page 34. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Mr.
Second.
Mayor.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Koenig.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Excuse me, resolution passes. Next up, we have a Small Cities Development Program grant submission. Mr. Willie.
Yeah, Mayor Zeman, members of the city council, you've been discussing for a while now on trying to develop an owner-occupied housing rehabilitation loan program. And to that end, you've met with representatives of the Minnesota Valley Action Council, I believe, 3 times. We had originally intended to provide $100,000 of city funds to provide up to 10 loans of $10,000. We were looking forward to moving forward with that plan, but after the last legislative session, the Department of Employment and Economic Development has encouraged providers like Minnesota Valley Action Council to provide developed competitive applications for small cities development program money, which would enhance our ability to make those funds and leverage some outside money from the Department of Employment and Economic Development. So we've used the housing condition survey that was completed by the Urban and Regional Studies Institute grad students from Minnesota State University, and they graded the condition of every single family structure in the community. Using their analysis, we've cross-referenced that then with census tract information related to household income. And our recommendation would be, if we move forward, that census tract 4804003, which means nothing to anyone, there is a map provided for your reference. It's generally south of Broadway, east of 7th, and then roughly it includes Jefferson Avenue and gets down to the Quick Trip area. That census tract has, on average, has the poorest housing conditions in the city of St. Peter. That census tract also then has the lowest median incomes within the city of St. Peter, so it would make a good target area for that. Census tract 4803003 then, which would be north of Broadway, east of 5th Street, south of Dodd, and to the river, would be the second target area that would be recommended by Minnesota Valley Action Council and your staff. If you would like to move forward with this, Minnesota Valley Action Council would have to develop a pre-application, which would be due to the Department of Employment and Economic Development by November, and followed by the final application, which then would be due in February of the coming year. To begin the process, it would be appropriate for Minnesota Valley Action Council then to provide household surveys within the 2 target areas. My office will assist with developing the mailing addresses. The surveys would propose to be sent out accompanied by a letter from the mayor encouraging people to complete them and providing a completion date. That is how it would move forward at this point. Minnesota Valley Action Council will develop the application at no cost if the grant is funded, and their administration, through their administration, then they would be able to be paid administrative fees, which would be determined upon such time. There is a resolution in the packet beginning on page 37, which would authorize Minnesota Valley Action Council to begin the survey process and to package the Small Cities Development Program grant application to the Department of Employment and Economic Development, targeting census tracts 4804043 and 4803003. Please note there is a typo in the resolution on the first census tract, which will be corrected to 4003. And this does not establish any terms of possible loans. At workshops, you've discussed deferred loans, 0% loans, repaid loans, forgiven loans. Those decisions will have to be made by the time that the pre-application is submitted. So we have a month or two to get to those extents, and you'll be asked to consider those at a future workshop. Again, the resolution is on page 37, and I believe continues on page 38. Mr. Mayor, I would answer any questions that you or members of the city council would have.
Questions? Steve?
Todd, if this application is successful and the city, the council agrees to commit to the $100,000, where would those funds come from? And I just on a secondary question, I read a revolving fund. Would the city establish a revolving fund to administer this program?
Yes, to your last question,
Okay.
it will depend on how DEED provides for the grant. Typically, they provide grants so that funds that are repaid can stay in the local community, or at least some portion of those can stay in the local community, meeting a number of criteria that they establish as a part of the grant. To your first question, we have not set aside, nor does this say you're going to provide $100,000. We've talked anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 based on the match that might garner you the appropriate amount of points to be successful. We hope that whatever we put in could get you up to $500,000 or more in matching dollars through the Small Cities Development Grant. Those funds are dollars that are set aside for housing that would have to be spent on housing already through the housing districts that you already have in place.
So would we, if this is approved, would we transfer X amount of dollars into a revolving fund and couple that with the dollars for this program, and then that would be the administrative total that would be utilized?
I think that's correct,
Okay.
Steve, if I understand where you're going. How we move the money would be, we would set up a separate fund for these dollars. So money that you would get through the state of Minnesota, and money that you would put towards it would be administered through Minnesota Valley Action in a separate fund.
Okay.
Then at the end of the program, the end of all the projects, hoping to do upwards of 20 plus to 30 homes potentially, those funds would then be accounted for in that fund. And then as repayment is made, if that's the direction that the council goes, it would go into that fund and would show up as a separate line fund in your audit.
Okay, thank you.
So really, all this is for them to prepare a grant application, and our involvement will be determined at a later date, how much we get involved.
Yeah, I think there's really two things that you're agreeing to now. First of all is to work with MVAC to provide for the application, provide approval for sending out the survey in the designated areas. Over the next month or two, we'd work through the process of, if you are to receive funds, exactly how those funds would be released or matched with other programs that MVAC has in place. And as Russ indicated, you've talked about could be forgiven, not forgiven, could have interest, no interest, all of those kind of things. Our perspective would be, at least from the staff level, would be is once you kind of know scope, once we see some survey data back, it becomes a little bit easier to know and understand how you want to tailor a program to best meet those needs.
Susie? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention, so far we've kind of talked about this from the city's perspective, but could either Russ or Todd just summarize what this means from a homeowner's perspective? So what we're talking about is a program that would make some funding available to homeowners whose homes are in need of some level of repair, and these funds would be in some way better than a straight-up bank loan, so there'd be perhaps lower interest, or a portion would be forgivable. Again, we don't have those details worked out yet, but that's what this would be for your average homeowner who's listening in.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we really ever said that here at the start, so I just wanted to make sure people understood what we're talking about. And there'd be some sort of eligibility requirements based upon the needs identified for your house. And
Yeah, household would have to, their income could not exceed 80% of the median income for Nicola County, and based on a household of 4, that would be $60,000. So, and that's what income, they'd have to be below that to be eligible.
The overall goal from the city's perspective has always been, and is included in your comprehensive plan, to help maintain housing stock. It helps all boats float higher. within our community if we can continue to maintain housing stock. And as Russ indicated, part of the work that the MSU graduate students did was identify those areas which may have the most need. So these are things for roofing, furnace, health, safety. It's not necessarily that somebody gets a fresh new coat of paint or new pillars on the front. It's all these basic things to help keep homes solid, usable, watertight, energy efficient.
Exactly. It's not for remodeling, if you will, or to add a sun porch. It's to handle those basic functions, energy efficiency, and life safety type issues.
Yeah, safety issues and what I refer to as deferred maintenance, things
Oh,
that
sure.
should have been taken care of to make your home more livable throughout the years, and maybe
Absolutely.
have gotten behind on. People have
And
gotten
the
behind.
survey inquires, what type of housing improvements does you feel your house needs? It asks how many people in the household, what's their household income? And I'm not exactly sure what they are, but you have to have a certain number of responses, and then a certain percentage of them have to be low, moderate income. Well, we know based on the 2010 census that 8 years ago, absolutely the majority of the people would qualify based on their household income. So the survey will kind of verify that for us.
That survey data is part of the application process. And so if we don't meet certain criteria, we don't score very high, and your chance of getting any funding is lower.
Yeah, or if only 2% of the people surveyed, we're going to send up about 900 surveys. If we have a very, very small response rate, it may be determined that it's not an effective program.
Yeah.
Any other questions? The resolution engaging MVAC to prepare a Small Cities Development Program grant application appears on pages 37 and 38. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
If I could once again note the
You
typo.
Yes,
It should be Census Tract 4804003.
Right,
instead
about
of
halfway
400.
down the first page.
And then
Mine's
again on
top
the
of
second
page
page.
38 is
Oh,
mine.
yeah, then
I did
I-
it twice, huh?
Twice, I see. Yep. And then on top.
I did do
page.
it twice.
For those typos,
It was proofread, but she's not proofreading for numbers, just words.
I missed that one too.
Jeff, whoever approved, is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Any other comments? Call the roll, please, Bert.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thanks, Russ. Next up, we have a Ward 1 polling place modification, and Todd.
Mayor and members, as we've talked about previously, Barber received notification from the National Guard Armory that they were going to undergo a renovation of their facility. And so for the November election, it would not be available. As you can imagine, in an election, there are lots of rules. And one of the rules is, well, if you got to change locations, there needs to be a resolution designated a new spot by the council, and notice needs to be provided. And so we work with the county and lots of other ways to get information out to folks to make sure that they know this. The location that we've looked at and have secured is on the fairgrounds, the Johnson Hall Fairgrounds, and it'll work just very fine for this kind of purpose. The resolution included in your packet provides for that polling place change and really gives us and sets direction, says go on all the notification, other things that we have to do to meet Minnesota state statutes for folks. Again, to be clear, this would mean that the November election, November 6th of 2018, would be held, the polling place for that would be at Johnson Hall at the fairgrounds.
Ward 1 only.
For Ward 1 only, yep.
Okay, questions?
So, just so I can feel really good about that, if you voted at the Armory, now you're going to vote at the fairgrounds. If you voted at the community center, you're going to vote at the community center.
And this will be for the remainder of 2018 and any elections that take place in 2019?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the plan. That's based on the timeline that the National Guard has given us related to the renovation. If something would happen and they would be done earlier,
We can
it
move
could
back.
change,
Okay.
but that's the plan right now.
How much time, I'm assuming there has to be a legal notice out there at some point as far as how far in advance of the election people are notified of their polling location. Do you know approximately what that is? I mean, 25 days. Did you say that? Is that in here? I missed it. Okay.
Written
And so
notice.
in this instance, written notice would be mailed to registered voters.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
So in a household that has two, they're getting 2 pieces of mail?
Probably.
We'll work with the county, whatever state statute tells us what we have to do, and so the county is going to put those together for us.
Okay. Right. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please. I thought we did that. That's the second time in a row. Is there a motion to approve the resolution designated change to City Ward polling place?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
And that change was, once again, from the Armory to Johnson Hall for those in Ward 1. Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Kwame?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a donation acceptance from the Friends of the Library.
Mayor and members, you can see correspondence within your packet on page 43 from Martin Nelson, who's the treasurer of the St. Peter Friends of the Library. They've been planning for quite some time to provide what I can best describe are hanging stained glass panels within the tower of the library that's just right here. And so as some of you may know, there are windows at the top that light in and that bring in a fantastic amount of light. And so their goal has been to provide this to really make the place look fantastic, and they're very excited about that. As you may recall, you had budgeted a couple $1,000s to assist them. And from a staff perspective, we look at this just like the Baseball Association, who might provide a donation and want to move a capital project along, and you might match some of the dollars with. They're very excited about this. They have a project ready to go. They would expect that it would be completed later this fall. They've commissioned a stained glass work locally in a local carpentry firm to help do the installation. There won't be any structural change. It's not that the windows that are up there now are being removed. These are hanging panels that would be within that tower, and the light would shine through. Because this is a donation of over $7,500, this is action that needs to be taken by the council to accept the donation, and then in addition, provide the $2,000 that you would plan to provide to complete the project. Information's in your packet, and the resolution's on page 44.
Questions? Todd, I have one. I know that, well, I don't know exactly, but I would imagine that doing these stained glass panels is an expensive undertaking for someone to do. So do we know, did Mr. Vogel donate some time and materials?
I don't know the answer. I just know the total anticipated project cost is $12,500.
Okay.
So I don't know what part is stained glass, what part is carpentry. I
No,
haven't seen
I'm
everything.
just talking about the overall, him doing this to begin with, did he donate? And if he did, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, Chuck. I can find out, but I can't speak to that
Okay,
exactly.
all right.
I know that they have commissioned him to do the work.
Okay, all right. Anything else? The resolution accepting donation from Friends of the Library appears on page 44. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second it.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Kwame?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Bowman?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a revolving loan settlement agreement with Hunter Hardwoods. Mr. Willie again.
Mayor and members of the city council, as you discussed at last Monday's workshop, the EDA has recommended the final settlement of the EDA loans previously provided to Greg and Nisa Shetler, which were used to partially fund the startup and later expansion of their Hunter Hardwood business. The first note was made in 2003 for $40,000 and partially financed the construction of their former location at 220 Dodd Avenue. And then a loan was subsequently made after that for $29,748 to provide partial financing for the expansion of that building, addition of a showroom, and some additional warehousing space. So the two loans totaled $69,748. Hunter's business was clicking along just fine, largely until what I would suggest is the housing recession. And Hunter's ultimately ended up closing their doors. After the first year, the city relinquished its second mortgage on the property to First National Bank to facilitate their sale of the property to a third party. In 2013, the city entered into a repayment agreement with Greg and Nisa Shetler. The agreement consolidated the two loans into a single balance. It established a 0% rate of interest, as the notes had borne interest before 2013, and it established monthly payments of only $50. That agreement expired in 24 months, and then in 2015, it was negotiated to raise the monthly payment to $100 a month. The Shetlers have made every payment of the 50 and 100 as scheduled without exception, but at their consideration, the EDA has recommended that we provide for final settlement of the note. The current balance then on the original $69,000 plus is $47,438.77. The EDA has recommended that you accept 55 cents on the dollar, or $26,091, forgiving $21,349 of the current balance. What is the fiscal impact? If, the original $21,349 proposed to be forgiven if you subtract the $3,000 that was paid by First National Bank, and then if you would subtract the $12,351 that the Shetlers had paid in interest when the notes bore interest, it could be argued that the city's net loss then would be $5,997. Again, the EDA has recommended the agreement that is contained in your packet. The Shetlers have executed a draft of the settlement prepared by the city attorney as per the EDA recommendations. There is a resolution on page 49 that would authorize the mayor and city administrator Prafke to execute the settle agreement on your behalf. Again, Mr. Mayor, I'd answer any questions that you or the council might have.
Questions for Russ? No one? I know it's in here, but the thing, I guess, I was kind of hesitant on this, but, you know, if we continue with this $100 a month, it's going to take 40 years.
Just under.
Yeah, just under 40 years. A lot can change in 40 years. And if you look at the, you know, we aren't getting any interest on this. If you look at the net present value of a dollar or money, you know, there's money to be made there, hopefully too. Not a lot, but probably some there where we wouldn't be getting anything. So that's kind of the point I'm at, that, you know, 40 years from now, I don't know how old the Shetlers are, but, you know, this can drag out forever. So basically, Jerry?
I can't speak for the rest of you, but I was raised with the idea that if you take out a loan, it's a promise to pay it back. And if you can't pay it back in your lifetime, then somebody else will determine if you made good on the loan or not I. But that was the ways I was brought up, and that's the way I look at it. A loan is a loan. It's not a grant. But as I say, that's my personal feeling.
I would agree with you, Jerry, on, except for what I said here. There's no guarantee that the Shetlers will keep paying. There's no guarantee that their heirs would keep paying on this thing. And now if we can recoup this and then move on, that's my only differing opinion on that, Jerry, so, for whatever that's worth. Anyone else?
I think, as you said, that the offer of $26,000 in hand today is a better deal for the city than $100 a month, hopefully, every month for the next 40 years. We can do more with that. If that money comes back to us, we can roll that back into our EDA. That would go back into our
Yes,
EDA
ma'am.
fund, and that's money that we can then loan out to other businesses and other initiatives. $100 a month, it's going to be a long time before we can make much of that to distribute again.
At the workshop, I had hoped that maybe we could increase their payments to maybe $500 a month, but that wasn't going to happen. And then get it back in like 8 years, but that wasn't going to happen. So this, I think, is a better alternative for us at this point. Anyone else? The resolution authorizing execution of settlement agreement with the Shetlers related to the revolving loans previously provided to Hunter Hardwood appears on pages 49 and 50. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Conley?
Aye.
Mayor Zima?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Nay.
Resolution is approved with one dissension. Next up, we have the Project 33 Watershed Committee.
Mayor, members, the information in your packet and the request from staff is for you to approve participation by staff and the assignment of 2 council members to a county-established committee that has the working title of the Project 33 Watershed Committee. The commissioners at their meeting last Tuesday provided for 2 county commissioners and directed staff to try and get some dates and have a discussion. I think most of the information here is provided in your packet, but the goal of this group is to talk about the watershed area generally west of St. Peter and look towards how we might to be able to promote initiatives, maybe it's make improvements, certainly work towards a greater understanding of what goes on in that watershed, as there's about 5,000 plus acres that flows right through St. Peter, and at times, including 1965, can create challenges for the city. There's no real cost to this other than your time, energy, and effort. It seemed appropriate to have 2 council members. We kind of polled the council at a workshop, and 2 of you said, "Oh, yeah, we'd love to talk about that." And so that's fantastic. We'd love to,
yeah.
too. Well, 2 of you did. And so the goal here is to appoint 2 council members and work towards some common meeting dates. Originally, there was discussion about potentially have a meeting late this week, but due to the short notice and getting everyone's calendars around, that is unlikely to happen this week. So you might expect a week or 2 from now for the next committee meeting to get moving along. I want to make one other mention. There are lots of folks that work on water issues within our area. And so I think part of the process will also include learning what some of those other groups really do and where we can connect and intermesh some of the efforts and try and maximize the potential for positive outcomes in this area for not only the city but for the county. And so I think that's the goal and the hope. The committee hasn't met yet to really define what that mission is, so I'm doing the best I can and kind of surmising what it might be. We also included a map just to show the western area of the city, and that 5,000 plus acres out there. And the resolution on page 54 directs staff to participate in organizing the group and appoints Councilmember Carlin and Kwame to sit on this committee.
Questions or comments? The resolution providing for participation in the joint committee with Nicollet County appears on page 54. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments at this point?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, this isn't something that just comes out of the blue. Discussion about this watershed area has been going on at city-county liaison meetings for a number of years. And it not only includes this area, but discussion related to how water flows through the city to the Minnesota River, and how cities have lots of rules, MS4 rules, and lots of other things that sometimes counties don't have to adhere to yet. And how can we work together to maximize the dollars that we're spending to try and make sure that water that is deposited in the Minnesota River is as clean as it can be, that we're protecting the river and the environment and doing right by property owners all along the way.
Any other comments? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Seaman?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Grams?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Tony?
Aye.
Resolution is approved, and thank you to the 2 council members, Carlin and Kwame, for their efforts so far and bringing us to a point that we even need a committee like this. It is much appreciated. Next up, we have a revolving loan subordination request from the St. Peter Food Co-op, and Russ, again.
Yeah, like a bad dream, I suppose, coming back all the time here. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, in 2011, you provided funding through the EDA to partially finance the food co-op's relocation from what is now the Jake's Pizza location on Broadway to the former Nielsen Chevrolet building at the corner of Mulberry and Highway 169. The original renovation, adaptive reuse of that property was $3,350,000. The majority of the financing was provided by 3 institutions. One, Wells Federal Bank, which is now CCF Bank, originally provided a $1.6 million loan, or 47.8% of the project. The North Country Development Fund, which now is called Shared Capital, they've changed their name, provided $300,000 towards the project. And then through the EDA, the city provided a $350,000 loan. The co-op that then brought $350,000 of cash to the project, and in very short order, they were able to raise $750,000 from their members. So the co-op brought $1.1 million in cash to their renovation program, which says a lot about their membership and their commitment to the co-op. Shortly after they relocated, Margot O'Brien, the general manager of the co-op, asked me to put together some information on why would a city make a loan of this nature. And the three things I touted at that time were electrical billings, since we're the electrical provider, estimated market value of the property, which then generates tax dollars, and then finally, what's the payroll impact on the employees? And I'd like to say that they nailed every one of them. When they were in what is now the Jake's Pizza building in 2011, their average monthly electrical bill was $2,447. Upon relocation the next year, their bill went up to $4,022 a month. And then in 2017, and the latest analysis says that that's gone up even further to $4,546 per month. As the electrical provider, that is good news for us. The market value when the property was Nielsen Chevrolet was $297,300. The first full estimated market value post redevelopment of the property was $436,500, and the 2017 estimated market value is $758,200. Again, a significant increase. This is the one that blows me away. In 2011, when they were at the old facility, their annual payroll of the food co-op operation was $405,386. Last year, calendar year 2017, their payroll was $1,210,162, or more than triple. So we can say that the EDA revolving loan has some power to it, and it's reflected by the food co-op project. At this time, giving consumer trends, industry trends, and the influence and input of a paid consultant, the food co-op is proposing to undertake an interior remodeling to expand the deli, and I heard even include a burrito bar. They will increase the size of the produce department while reducing the size of their bulk food department. They'll be able to widen some aisles to make the shopping experience a little more convenient. And then they will also provide for repairs to the roof, which are necessary. The total project is $5,080,000. They are not asking for one additional nickel of city money for this project.
No, it's not.
$580,000. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. $580,000 is the current project. I threw an extra zero in my number here. There's no additional EDA funds that are requested for the project. CCF Bank has consented to provide an additional $500,000 loan, and the co-op then is able to bring an additional $80,000 in cash that they have accumulated to the project. At this time, the city's loan is at 3% interest. It's amortized on a 20-year schedule, but due and payable via balloon payment after 10 years. The current balance of the EDA note is $245,210. Every payment has been made as due, when due, and in the amount due without a single exception. The food co-op has an unblemished payment history. That is also reported by CCF Bank and Shared Capital, or NCDF. The balance of the NCDF loan then, the original $300,000, theirs is on a straight 10-year amortization, has been paid down to $114,259. Of the original CCF Bank note of $1.6 million, the current balance is $1,186,665. So there's a total current debt on the food co-op of $1,546,124. Again, the city is in a third mortgage position behind CCF Bank, who has the priority position, and then the NCDF, or Shared Capital, has the second mortgage position on that. The Shared Capital, or NCDF, has consented to the subordination, and the same request has been made of the city then to subordinate our note to both of those, or our mortgage to both of those. was appropriate and necessary to have an appraisal of the property done. So Brovold and Company has established a post-development remodeling appraisal of $2.3 million. And that was just completed last month. If you would approve the subordination, as has been recommended to you by the Economic Development Authority, you would then be subordinate to a total of $1,800,914. If you would add the balance of the city's note of $245,210, a total debt on the property with an appraisal of $2.3 million would be $2,046,124. The subordination, if approved, would lie within the established loan guidelines that you provided in 2016. And again, the EDA has recommended approval of the subordination requested by CCF Bank, subject to the addition of a no future advance clause on the CCF loan documents. That is, we cannot allow it to be used as a line of credit, because then they could draw back down on the notes and our subordination could be past the 2.3 market value. So the bank has proposed adding that language. The city attorney has reviewed that. The city attorney provided a uniform copy of a subordination that you would, the city would be expected to sign, and then there's an inter-creditor agreement that's being passed along between the bank, CCF Bank, NCDF, and the city attorney Brandt's been reviewing that to make sure it has the proper language and that it also has that no advance clause language. Mr. Mayor, there is a resolution on page 58 for your consideration, and I'd answer any questions that you or the city council may have regarding the requested subordination.
Questions? Steve?
Russ, I just have one. In one of your last paragraphs on page 57, you mentioned that the president of the EDA appointed two individuals, Mr. Hanson and Mr. Favre, to, I'm assuming, review the creditworthiness of the food co-op to take on this additional debt. What qualifications do they have to make that determination?
Both gentlemen are vice presidents of local financial institutions.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Abels, also on the EDA, would typically be involved in that also, but he's vice president at CCF Bank, so he would have had a conflict.
Okay.
And so it's real regular, and usually it's done, Councilman Graham's, to avoid the public disclosure of personal finances. If I distribute them, well, if I possess them and distribute them, they become public information in effect. And so to protect some level of privacy, we have those reviewed by a subcommittee of experienced individuals who make then a recommendation to the full EDA.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Russ, you talked about the dollars of the payroll. How many employees do they have?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In 2011, they had 42 employees, and today they have 78.
Okay.
As a result of this project, they need to add 2 more employees to the deli. Hours in 2011, total hours of payroll, 37,675 hours, and the last year it was 94,024 hours. So again, and that corresponds obviously with the increase in payroll. So
Okay.
Margot O'Brien and her crew at the co-op should really be commended for the enterprise that they've developed over the last 30-plus years and the attraction that it is to people either coming to town or going through town. So.
Jerry?
Was there any looking at their marketing and handling the displays in there internally as opposed to going another $500,000 in debt?
They originally thought that perhaps their biggest issue was in the produce, but when the consultant came in, he said, no, your biggest issue you need to address is the deli. So a remodeling of the deli area, increase somewhat in size, and a change to the flow, they think will really, I believe she said their deli does 30% of the business, which is outstanding.
Actually, when I look at this, I keep thinking it's a never-never plan. In other words, you just keep borrowing and you never get it all paid off. And, well, all of you around here know that I'm very conservative, and after just 7 years, they had a remake, and now they're going to remake it again, and they don't have a lot of money in reserve to do that. I can't see that myself, but that's my personal feeling.
Appreciate that.
Anyone else? Russ, you referred to their electric dollar usage. You know, maybe in the future, unless you have it now, I would rather see you tell us their kilowatt hours they use, because we've had rate increases in the last 7 years. So,
Yeah, I would assume, yes, there had been. I don't have the kilowatt usage. I can certainly get that and report back at a workshop.
well, I'm just, for future, just, maybe use that instead of, if we have something like this, use that instead of dollars, because, like I say, it's not a really apples to apples comparison as far as I'm concerned, although it's increased. The only other question I had to do with the appraisal. You had said something about the estimated market value, that's what they pay taxes on, was 700?
I'm sorry, the appraised value is what Brovold had come up with.
Yeah, but you had said about the estimated market value was 758,000? That's what they're paying taxes on?
That's, yeah, it was on the Beacon website for Nicola County.
Okay. This appraisal, excuse me, for $2,300,000, did that include what's commonly called, or called in parlance, FFE, furniture, fixture, and equipment?
I believe so, yes.
Do we know how much that was of the appraisal?
I don't have the appraisal with me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Because a lot of times when you're doing loans, and maybe, I know the bank looked at these or whatever, when you're doing loans, furniture, fixture, and equipment usually is something that's pretty, the depreciation on that and the usage of it goes pretty quick. And it's not in conjunction with that. I was just kind of curious what their appraisal included. So anyway, if you didn't have that, it's still, if these other guys, Favor and Hanson looked at it, I think we're fine, but it's something, I guess, the details on that would be nice to know too. So in essence, what they're telling us is this building is very undervalued as far as tax purposes.
It appears so.
From 2.3 million to 758,000, I would think it would be. So the county, I know, is not just going to go raise it to this 2.3 million after maybe hearing about this, because they can't do that. But there is some other justifications that might be there for it. Any other questions or comments? Steve?
Along that line, Mr. Mayor, on a post-appraisal, I'm just asking, would this include intangible assets, or also known as blue sky?
Probably not.
Okay.
Not in this situation. I can't imagine that it would. It would include, like I say, the furniture, fixture, and equipment, I would think would be part of it. But how much of it, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But this is after it's all completed, and, their completion, they aren't changing anything to really, this 500. But,
Yeah, interior remodeling and roof repairs.
all right. Oh, there are roof repairs. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank
Anyone
you,
else?
Mr. Mayor.
The resolution approving subordination of city-held mortgage securing revolving loan made to St. Peter Co-op appears on pages 58 and 59. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Nay.
Councilmember Coleman.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. Resolution is approved with 1 nay. That concludes our new business. Thanks, Russ. The only thing I have, and I see once again, Todd, it's on yours, is the bridge dedication. It seemed to be a pretty good turnout, and I'll let you continue with yours.
Well, actually, I was hoping council would fill in. That's one that I could not attend, and I know a few of you attended. So my understanding was that it was a very nice event.
Yeah.
And wonderful use of Levy Park, and just really cool, and it's great to have that bridge working. I don't know if anybody has any other.
I don't know. Steve, you were there?
Yes.
Jerry was there?
Yes, I enjoyed the tour of the bridge more than the socializing. And
Oh, did I talk to you?
that was good enough. That's all. I just talked to you and my wife, and that was fine. But I still wish that the council would direct Mr. Moulton to let us know where the light switch is, so we can attend the light ceremony when the lights are finally lit up.
John?
Todd, could you give, for the people at home, a brief rundown of exactly what was done to the bridge and what was done the whole area? I mean, just, the bridge isn't higher, but it used to be fracture critical. One part fails and it fell in the river. And
Correct.
Now that's not true. I don't know what they did. And we participated with lighting and all sorts of things, the sidewalk and such too. Just a quick
Yes.
overview.
John, I think that's accurate. The state legislature had deemed this bridge fracture critical, which, as you indicated, in layman's terms means that if one thing breaks, it could fall into the river. That's generally bad. And so what the state of Minnesota did was provide funding, some state funding and federal funding, that allowed for the bridge, since it is a National Historic Site, to be enhanced in such a way that it did not negatively impact the aesthetics of the bridge, rendered it safe so it was no longer fracture critical, made some improvements to lighting, painted it in a way that was historically accurate as to when it was built, and provided its load capacity to be just a little bit higher than it would have been otherwise. So that's generally what went on. The price tag for this was pretty expensive, in the millions. And I think it's important to remember, too, that there had been a plan originally for a new bridge to be constructed there, and since this bridge can't be disposed of, to move this bridge to another location downstream about 500 yards, this seems to be a really, the solution that was put in place was a much more cost-effective solution, and I think the results, it looks really good. It's a really nice-looking bridge. Just to be clear in relation to Mr. Moulton's role, he does not have a switch. Ultimately, when all the lights are made available, and some of these lights have to be remanufactured because of the historic nature of them, when they're all installed, that's when the lights will be able to be connected with the rest of your street lighting system and turned on automatically, unless you really want Pete to get up at night and in the morning and turn them on and off, which I guess we can have him do. I hope that answers or is the direction of the things you were looking for, John.
But we also renovated, modernized the gateway from the bridge to Highway 169, Minnesota Avenue, in conjunction with this also to tie it in, which I think was just as good a improvement to the community and the appearance as the bridge is done.
It all works together very nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is much safer than it had been previously.
Right.
For sure.
Yes. Steve?
Really, the real enjoyment that I had was going on the bridge and listening to the engineers and how enthusiastic they were in remodeling in the project. I mean, they were truly engaged in what they did and really and they showed all kinds of interesting facts about the bridge that none of us know about and wouldn't even see how they had fixed it. And it really, I mean, for me, I enjoyed just being on the bridge for the first time.
Yeah.
But it really was interesting to listen to them. And I believe there's only 3 of those bridges left in the state. I believe that's what I recall correctly. Yeah.
Jerry, do you want to add anything?
No, it had a nice turnout. There was a nice crowd there. And the chamber did a very good job, as they usually do.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping they'd have you speak, because I told you I'd like to hear what it was like in 1931 when they opened it.
I told you, I was born in the 30s, but I wasn't on the bridge. Go out alone at that time.
Cross that bridge when you come to it. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just keep going if you
Yes,
don't mind.
please.
The next one we have is the Rita Annual Meeting on the 25th here in St. Peter at Gustavus. I'd really love you to come up to me after the meeting and tell me whether you can attend. That starts at 5:30, if I remember correctly.
The date again?
The 25th of September. And they're really looking for a head count. And so whatever you can do would be fantastic. Please let us know. I'll just keep going on. Included in your packet is the goal session report. I did pass that out at your workshop, so if any of you had questions about that, but again, that's not meant to represent minutes of your goal setting session. It really is meant to represent the basic tenor of the discussion and direction that was provided to staff. And so I think it does that very well. Let me do 3 other ones very quick, Mr. Mayor, if I can. Some of you should have received, maybe on your desk tonight or in the mail, a letter from SIMPA referencing the annual meeting on October 11th, which is a Thursday, or Friday the 12th. I know a couple of you have been to that in the past. It's a really worthwhile meeting if you have the time and energy to do it. It's in Bloomington, so it's not that far away. I know Pete will be there for the 2 days. I plan to be there on Thursday when that real annual meeting occurs and some of the presentations about some of the work that SIMPA's done. But please let us know within the next few days if you'd like to attend. You can let Barbara know or Angie know, And we'd love to see you there. It's a great time to talk with the other Simple communities about what they have going on, not only about electricity, but lots of things that are going on.
So is it, you're there one day, is it necessary to be there both days, or is one day better than the other?
I think Thursday, at least from my perspective, is the day to get the most information and a great opportunity to work with and visit with the SIMPA staff and other SIMPA communities. So if I was picking, I'm picking Thursday, and that's what I'd recommend to the council if you can only do one day.
Okay.
Next one that I have is want to mention the River's Edge Appreciation Picnic, which is on Wednesday this week. It's supposed to be beautiful weather from 4:30 to about 6:30 off Klein Street. So that would be on the west side of the Hospital of Mayo Clinic building there. So it'll be a wonderful opportunity to visit with your friends and neighbors. There'll be some presentations and information about what's going on at the hospital and the project and some of the other activities going on. So I would encourage all of you and anybody that might see this tomorrow night on public access or on YouTube channel to go out to that. Again, it's this upcoming Wednesday from 4:30 to 6:30. And last, related to the hospital, we want to send kudos to them. They received another award from Studer Group for excellent patient care. And they've done just a fantastic job related to patient care. And it really falls into this one, and from Guinea, this really falls into the surveys that they get back and how patients reflect upon their stay there with them. But I also have to tell you, they continue to win awards for the service that's provided, lack of infections, minimizing infections, response to treatment, all of those things. The hospital's just doing a great job, so we're really happy to have Rivers Edge Hospital, which is a community-owned hospital here in St. Peter. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's the end of my quick reports.
Anybody else have anything else to add? Maybe they could start, is there an award for finding cars buried in the dirt out there?
Yeah, there could be in the future. I see something happening.
Something we could start. If there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.